In this lesson, we're going to continue to discuss paragraph formatting. If you'd like to follow along, go under your File menu to Open, and in the Working Files folder, go into Chapter number 7 and select Tab Tips Part 1, and just click Open. Before we get started, let's go to our Zoom tool and just click and drag across the width of our page. Let's start with Tab Basics. First thing I need to do is go to my Type tool and just click anywhere in my text frame. Then I'm going to go under my Type menu to Tabs. That's right, it's a Tabs panel. Unlike other layout and word processing applications, InDesign has you doing your formatting in a panel, and there's big advantages to this. If I was in a dialog window and I was formatting my tabs, and at a certain point I realized at the end of my line I had 3 extra tabs, well, I would have to cancel out of my dialog window, lose all the formatting that I've done, just to select these 3 extra tabs and hit delete. So I'm starting all over again. In a panel, I could do all of my formatting, and when I realized that there's a problem with the way the tabs were typed in, I could just select the extra tabs and delete them and continue formatting without losing anything. Like other panels, the Tabs panel has an Options menu, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It also has this little magnet to the lower right. Let me show you what that does. I'm going to get an insert point anywhere in my frame and click the magnet, and it pulls the panel up to the top of the frame, aligning perfectly to the width of the frame. But there are times when the magnet just doesn't work. Let me show you. I'm going to go to my Selection tool and just click outside of the frame. And I'm going to move my panel down by clicking on the top part of the panel and just dragging. If I click on my magnet, nothing happens. It doesn't know what frame you want to align to, so it doesn't do anything. As soon as I double click to switch from my Selection tool to my Type tool, if I now click on the magnet, it pulls it right up to the top of the frame, perfectly aligned. But there are other times that the panel magnet does not work. Let me show you. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, and I'm going to pull my Tabs panel further down and click on the magnet, and nothing will happen. And the reason is there's not enough room for the panel above the top of the text frame and the top of the working area. So if I scroll back up to make room for the panel, now when I click on the magnet, it goes right up to the top of the frame. Now, tab formatting is paragraph formatting. So normally, if all of my lines were in the same paragraph, all I would have to do is click in any one of the lines and it will format the entire paragraph, every single row. But I have a paragraph return at the end of each line. So to format them all at once, I'm going to have to click and drag with my Type tool across all of the lines. Now let's get into the different formatting tools that are available in the panel. The first is a Left Justify tab. If I go above my ruler to, let's say, 1 inch, and I click above the ruler, you'll see that it's moving the text over so that the left side of that column of text is aligning perfectly to this tab. That's why it's called a Left Justify tab. And if I click and drag that tab to another position, the text is going to go right back to it. And you can see every time I click on the tab, I get an insert line going down my column, so I can see how it's aligning, even if the panel is off on the side. So let me just click my magnet to get it back to the top, and I'm just going to click again at about 2 inches. Let me go a little bit further towards the right. How about 2¼ inches? And you can see how now the left side of that column is aligning perfectly to the tab when I click on it. what was happening earlier when I didn't leave enough room for the formatting to actually work. In that line that it's not working because there's too much text in that particular column, it pushes over to the next available ½ inch. Well, let me make room for it. If your two columns crash into each other, the formatting will not work, and you have to drag it slightly over to make room for the formatting to happen. Let me go a little bit further over and click again. A little bit further over, how about 5 inches, and click again, and then one last time at a little bit more than 6 inches. So you can see all of my columns are aligning perfectly. If one of your rows flowed over onto the next line, simply click on the tabs and drag them slightly back towards the left to make room for that last column. And you'll see that you just click and drag and let go. So pretty easy. But what's the next kind of tab? Well, let me make room for my second row here. I'm going to start by clicking on the tab next to the first row and just dragging it back quite a ways. And then I'm going to click on the second tab. And with that selected, you can see the tab is actually highlighted. I'm going to click on Center Justify, and you can see that now that column is centered perfectly to the tab. Let me click on the tab to show you this insert line, to show me how it's working, and if I let go, that text in that column is centered to the tab. But let me drag this back towards the right and apply a different kind of formatting. How about Right Justify? I'm going to click Right Justify with my second tab selected, and you can see the right side of that column is aligned to the tab. One last kind of formatting, let me just drag back towards the left again and let go. And I'm going to click on Align to Decimal. Actually, it's Align to Decimal or Other Specified Character tab. And you'll see why in just a minute. I'm going to click on the Align to Decimal tab, and you can see all of my decimals are aligning perfectly going down the column, no matter how many digits there are to either side of that decimal. Now, what makes it an Align to Decimal or Other Specified Character tab is you can make it align to any character. Let me show you. With my second tab still selected, I'm going to select the decimal in the Align On field and type a 0 in there, and then hit Enter or Return. And you can see all of the first zeros from the left are aligning perfectly going down the page. Let me click on that and move it over a little bit. You'll see the insert line, and when I let go, all of the left sides of my zeros are aligning perfectly. So you can literally align to anything. Let's talk a little bit about the Options menu. In the upper right-hand corner of the panel, there's a little downturned arrow, the Options menu. The first choice is Clear All. If I wanted to get rid of all of the tabs that I just formatted, this is the fastest way to do it. But let me add another tab at the end over here, around 7 inches. And I don't need that tab. It's not doing anything because there's no additional text. If I wanted to get rid of that additional tab, I could go under the Options menu to delete the selected tab, but I could also do this. Just click on the tab and drag it out from above the ruler and it'll go away. Another thing that's under the Options menu, first, let me just do Clear All. So we're starting over again. And at about 1 1/4 inches, I'm just going to add a decimal tab. And make sure that the Align On is no longer 0. I'm going to type a period in there and hit Enter or Return. And you can see that in my first column, all the decimals are aligning perfectly down the page. If I go under the Options menu, there's something called Repeat Tab. Let me just do that. it's going to add once every 1.25 inches an additional decimal tab. So whatever the first tab is, it's going to repeat that over and over again as many times as it can across the width of my frame. Let me move this one a little bit. The first one, I'm just going to move it into about an inch. And let's just see what happens. And I'm going to go back under my options menu to repeat tab. And not enough room for that to happen because some of the columns are actually crashing into each other. Why don't I go back to, how about 1 1/8? And let's see if that works. I'm going to go back under the options menu to repeat tab. And you can see that it's aligning all of the decimals in each and every column going right across my entire text frame. There is an additional tab, but of course I could just click on that and drag it out from the top. Now, if this was formatting that I was going to use again and again throughout a document, the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Paragraph Styles panel and save it as a paragraph style, which we'll talk about in an upcoming chapter.